Hey everybody, welcome back to Omens. I'm your host, Ryan, AM Air Pronouns, and welcome to episode 44, Death. The second to last episode of this lovely month of October and Halloween spooky. Or whatever the hell it is people say. I'm not a big holiday fan, or Halloween in general. Things that people, like a lot of people love, I tend to not really be a fan of. Don't know, it's just me. I don't like following along with the crowd, I guess. So, anyway, but that's not important. So next week I've got my Halloween special, which you gonna have to wait to find out what it is. It's fun. It's a lot. A lot of fucking research. Ouch. My head. But anyway, that's not what we're here about. Today we're going to talk about the Death Card, which is completely and utterly appropriate for this month. In fact, all of my videos for this month have been desperately appropriate for Halloween. We had the Ace of Swords, which was, of course, air, and all that lovely coming into our head, and of course the fact that the swords are one of the suits that are the heaviest suit in the deck. They're the heaviest suit in the deck, in my opinion. And then the moon, of course, because Halloween is not Halloween without the moon. And now we're talking about death. The Death Card, which is just dyingly appropriate. Just desperately appropriate for Halloween. Alright, so let's get into it. Let's talk about death. And if you're watching this, you probably know by now, because like I've said before and way back, this isn't really a beginner type, this isn't really a beginner video series, because I assume you already know something about tarot. Though I did retroactively take that back when I did an entire Tarot 101 series or three-parter. So, if you're a beginner and you're looking at this, I mean, cool. More power to you. I just have some people that have gone through the beginner class and sit there and stare at me when I start teaching my slightly more advanced class and go, what the fuck? I've had that a couple times. I don't teach that class often. Nobody cares past the beginner. I've even had somebody actually say that beyond the basic keywords, tarot really doesn't have that much to it. Well, fuck you too, bitch. Tarot has a lot to it. Gets fascinating the deeper you go. It's maybe not astrology deep, but tarot's pretty fucking deep, so grinds my damn gears. And that was like months ago I heard that. Still grinds my damn gears. Wish I could have punched her, but that wouldn't have been appropriate, I guess. Alright, anyway, so let's dive into death. Alright, so like I said, if you're not new, you already know that death is associated with change. Inevitable, slow-moving change. So, let's just get that out of the way. It's very rarely a literal death. It can mean a literal death, but that's, like I said, extremely rare. Because in tarot, we don't tend to deal in absolutes. I mean, in divination in general, we don't tend to deal in absolutes, especially not about the future. Mostly because the future is never absolute. It's always a percentage. Shoe fly. Alright. Shoe gnat, honestly. Alright, so the first part of our card is the numerology, of course, and death is the number 13. In fact, in the Solabusca tarot and some of the older tarots, I'm not sure about the Visconti, but the Solabusca tarot, death doesn't even have, and the Marseille tarot, I believe, Tarot de Marseille, death doesn't actually have a title. It is just the number 13 with a skeleton with a scythe. It doesn't have a title. It's just 13. And then, of course, the Fool is unnumbered, which is why they usually put in the French school of tarot, they put it at the end of the major arcana, as opposed to here in the English school where we put the Fool at the beginning of the major arcana. Fascinating stuff. This is why I love tarot. Okay, so the number 13. So we have here my Archeon Tarot, which is a Grim Reaper, a traditional Grim Reaper. We can only really see the skull and the scythe. And so this card is difficult to see even outside of the camera. So, because you see all this black right here, there is detail. There is detail, but it is very difficult to see. So first off, the very first time I pulled this card and looked at it, you can tell the way the skull's head is cocked, or the skeleton's head is cocked. It looks like he's moving this direction and moving to the right and looking behind him. So it looks like the skeleton's looking behind him. However, once you actually really look closely and examine, because this is so freaking dark, and you can't even tell. So I'm going to do my best to show you, because I can't really tell when I'm not actually staring at it. So this little white patch right here is a wing. No, it's not. That is a horse's skull. So this is the horse's skull. So Death rides on a pale horse, often depicted as a skeleton horse. So that is a horse skull right there. So Death is actually riding on a horse. Can't really see the horse besides its skull, but you can't see the skeleton of Death besides its skull either. This up here, this little kind of gray area, is wings, and this, of course, is the scythe. That's fair, easy enough to see, ish, compared relative to the rest. It's easy enough. So skull, horse skull, skull, scythe, wings. This kind of gray area right here is a lighter patch of robes, or I think it's actually a bag. It's a pouch. And then right here where my finger's at, you can't see it in the video, but there is an hourglass right there. So time and all that. So Death is actually, you really can't see it at all in this video, but maybe if I get closer, not really, but okay, it's a little bit more detail. You can see, so right here is the arm of Death, holding onto the reins of the horse. So Death isn't actually moving one direction and looking behind him. He's actually looking forward. He's going to the left here. Or, well, my left. It's okay, if this was actually face up in a reading, technically Death is moving to the right. So we're going to go from y'all's point of view. So Death is actually not looking to the right and moving to the left. He's looking and moving to the right. All right. Yes, that didn't confuse me at all. Okay, so Death is actually riding forward, not looking back behind him as he moves forward. It's, even though it looks like that at first glance, and damn, the Archeon, I've shown this deck before, a few cards, and it's always very muted toned and very blendable. This is the darkest and most difficult to see the detail of card. It's actually kind of cool, and I like the symbology of that and the fact that you can't really see the details of the change heading your way. You just know it's coming. I kind of like that. Now that I bring that up. Alright, inspire that. So that is the Death card. That is the long explanation. Usually it's easier to say, but yeah, you can't see detail or shit on this card. I literally thought the horse's skull was wings, and I knew that was a horse's skull. I've seen that before. But dear fucking gods. So hard. So anyway, moving to the numbers. The number 13. First we're going to break it down. 1, 3, and 1 plus 3 equals 4, plus 13 as is. Alright, so the number 1, been over this a bajillion times this way. It's ego, self, divinity, as divinity coming to manifestation, the absolute, the prime number, the only absolute number, unity, yada yada yada. So it's the self. It's singular person, the ego. Three is the number of the mind. It's the first mind number. It's the number of the conscious mind, of rationality, of the intellect. It's also the number of creativity. So it's the creative mind. It's the entirety of the mind. It's not just right brain or left brain or whatever, what have you. It is the entire mind. It's all of mentality. So it's rationality and creativity. It's the conscious mind and, to a degree, the unconscious mind. It's both logic and reason and chaos and insanity, maybe. So creativity. 4 is, so 1 plus 3 equals 4. So 4 is the key to orderliness, practicality, and organization. And it's the second physical number. It's a physical number. It's structure, order, everything contained in a box. So 13 includes all of these previous 3 elements. The elements of the 1, the 3, and the 4. It's got a bit more 4 in it than 1 and 3 because technically it adds up to 4. So 13 is pragmatism. It's both independence, creativity, and collaborate. It's a lot more independence because both 1, 3, and 4 are all fairly independent numbers. They don't really depend on another. Creativity and firm future foundations. It's looking to the future because it's so near the beginning. A 1 and a 3, but it's structuring those on settled boundaries, on very good boundaries. 13 is also I've heard it said, a goddess number, a number of the goddess. It's unlucky and lucky depending on who you're talking to and which history you're going for. 13 for some reason has just become a number in the world, or at least in our culture, that has strong associations with it, both bad luck and good luck. And there's a multitude of reasons. There were 12 apostles, but there were 13, 13 in the Last Supper, and so the 13th Judas was the unlucky number, the betrayer. There's, what's another one? Some of the myths of the number 13. Alright, so paraskevidictrophobia, blah. Avoid marrying, traveling, or in most severe cases, even working. Alright, so early myth surrounding the origin of the fear involved one of the world's oldest legal documents, the Code of Hammurabi, which reportedly omitted a 13th law from its list of legal rules. In reality, that omission was no more than a clerical error made by one of the document's earliest translators who failed to include a line of text. In fact, the code doesn't numerically list its laws at all. Alright, so number 12, considered a perfect number in the ancient world. The ancient Sumerian developed a numeral system based on the use of 12 that's still used for measuring time today. Following so closely on the heels of a perfect number, some argue that 13 was sure to be found lacking and unusual. Both of which, the fear of the unknown would seem to play into the two other popular theories for numbers' unlucky connotation, both of which revolve around the appearance of a 13th guest at 2 ancient events. In the Bible, Judas Iscariot, the 13th guest to arrive at the Last Supper, is the person who betrays Jesus. Meanwhile, ancient Norse lore holds that evil and turmoil were first introduced into the world by the appearance of the treacherous and mischievous god Loki at the dinner party in Valhalla. He was the 13th guest, upsetting the balance of the 12 gods already in attendance. It's also only unlucky in the West. Ancient Egyptians actually considered the number lucky, while others have simply swapped their numbers at the base of their phobias. 4 is avoided in much of Asia, for example, because the number 4, the word for 4 in most Asian languages, I learned this in Japanese class, the number 4 is very close to the word for death. So actually specifically in Japanese counting systems, it's ich, ni, san, shi. So shi is the number 4, but it is also the same sound but a different character. Shi also means death, which is why in Japanese counting systems, oftentimes instead of saying shi, they'll say yon. So ichi, ni, san, yon, go, roku, shichi, hachi, ku, kyuju. And actually shichi, 7, the number 7, is also because it has she in there. Often, instead, they'll say nana instead of shichi. So 4 is unlucky because it's so close to death, which, funnily enough, 13 equals 4. So we have 2 very highly unlucky numbers, depending on where you are in the world, all combined in one freaking card. 13 and 4. Death. So, fascinating how unlucky this card is seen to be. In fact, it's often, if you see someone who's not well into tarot, will see it as an unlucky card because they're like, oh my god, it's the death card. It's death. It's death. Change is very unlucky for some people, apparently. So anyway, that is the numbers. Alright, so moving on to the alchemy from my alchemy book. We have Death or La Muerte from my Favol deck, La Favol deck, which is a lovely woman in white with her mascara running down her cheeks because she's been crying, lying in a pond covered in lily pads. Such a beautiful, serene, and sad view. Such a gothic. It is a gothic deck. So, the alchemy, the quote I have from this is, constant change is constant renewal, and death is the loosening of energies of matter for release into the spirit and eventual rebirth. ... If the spirit, however, has no new form to enter into, or the old one is not resurrected, then its energies are lost and the work is a failure and must be restarted. So in alchemy, in the alchemical process, death is the point where we stop and let everything just dissipate. And then it has to come back, it has to have a form to come back into, otherwise it's a failure. So same thing with death. Things are going to disapparate, and in order for them to be reborn, you have to have somewhere for them to go. And but some people, change is so utterly horrendous, they just die. There's no new form for the energy to go into. They're just bleh. And that's something that comes up in the death card that I love to reference one of my old tarot teachers, Mashad, about, because in the RWS card and in a few other decks too. In fact, in my Kitchen Table Tarot book, it also has, it's an updated version of RWS, but it has the same characters. So Death comes riding on a pale horse, and he's standing there, and there's 3 people in front of him, 1 person under him. And they're kind of, and Mashad talks about it as the 4 different ways people can go through change. The first one, the king, is lying dead on the ground. Some people cannot deal with change. It will pretty much kill them. This utter movement, it's whether it like literally physically kills them or whether it's like they're thrown off for ages upon ages because they cannot fucking deal with this change. Change will basically kill them. That's one person. The next person is the girl who's like standing facing death, but her head's turned away like, oh, I don't want to really do that. Yeah, I'm going to do this, but I really don't want to do this. That's the next type of person that deals with change. That's how they deal with change, is they'll do it, but they'll be dragged kicking and screaming. They really just do not fucking want to. The third type of person is the priest or pope or whatever, the bishop. And how those types of people deal with change is like, they're like, this is going to suck, but I'm going to hold on to my faith, I'm going to hold on to my beliefs, and that's going to help me through it. Whatever type of faith or beliefs those are, whether it's a faith in the Christian God or a pagan deity or in the universe itself. Like, some people, for their change, it's like, that change is like, oh my god, this is really trying, but I know the universe has something good in store for me after this, so I'm going to make it through this. It sucks right now, but I can do it through this. I have my faith. I have my beliefs to hold on to. That's the third type of person, is like, they will move even if they didn't integrate it, if they didn't instigate it, or really want it, if it's a sucky type of change, but they're going to hold on to their faith and beliefs to help get them through it. The fourth type is the little child who's just standing there and going, hi, Death. And that's, some people go through change because they're completely innocent. They're like, oh my gosh, this is cool. Something new, something different is happening. Let's go, let's go, let's go. Let's see this through. What will happen on the other side? That's the fourth type of person that, fourth type of way you can deal with change. So there's the, you're like, I'm going to die. I'm going to go kicking and scream. It's like, I cannot deal with this. I'll do it, but I'm going to be kick, scream, and throw a hissy fit the entire way. It's going to suck, but I got my faith. I got my beliefs. I'm going to hold on to that as I go through it. Or, fuck yeah, let's do this. And that fuck yeah, let's do this, yeah, I'm sure that's an optimum, that full innocence. Mishad always talks about how that's how he always wants to see changes with the innocence of a child. I'm like, yeah, that works. I can see it. But when it's changed, that fucking hurts. When shit's going down, people are dying, you're losing your job and your pets or whatever, when change fucking sucks, I don't see how you can go through it with the happy innocence of a child. I'd say I'm probably gonna be the person that's holding on to their faith of, this sucks, but I'm gonna get through it. I swear I'm gonna get through it. And sometimes at that point when it's really bad, I'm the one throwing the hissy fit. I'm like, fuck this shit, why? And I have a feeling most of us are. We're either throwing a hissy fit or we're like, come on, universe, just get me through this bullshit. And that went away from the alchemy pretty fast, but yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like, and that's, well, actually, no, I had a point for that. So in the alchemy, that change is like the optimum is that innocent child. It's like, this change has happened and we have a new vessel easily to put into. Might be a little more difficult with the next two, but the third one, the king that's just fucking dead, like I can't deal with this shit at all. That alchemy, that energy has nowhere to go into. Its possible place to return to is dead. So the work is going to have to start all over. And that sucks. Sorry. Alright. Alright, next part of this is the astrology. And I have my celestial deck here because why not? Celestial tarot is beautiful. And in astrology, the astrological association with the death card is Scorpio, the zodiacal sign of Scorpio. I have done a episode on Scorpio, so you can go back and listen to that or watch that if you want to kind of get a bit more into Scorpio, because I'm going to kind of just go give you a quick overview. So in the astrological tarot, we have an older crone up here, giving her hand, reaching out her hand to a younger maiden here, like, hey, you can come with me, I'll initiate you into these deep mysteries. It's like you're no longer going to be pure and innocent, you're going to be a little bit more knowledgeable and wise like me. I'll guide you through this, because Scorpio is mysteries, depths. It's the initiation into the unknown. It's diving deep into the unknown. So that's what that represents here, is the crone leading the maiden, is giving the maiden the opportunity to come delve into these mysteries. Some of the other associations with Scorpio, so we've got the main animal associated with Scorpio, here is the scorpion. The other one often associated with Scorpio is the phoenix. That's another animal associated with Scorpio because it's dying and reborn. Scorpio is delving into the muck to be reborn into light, like the lotus. How a beautiful lotus, the symbol of enlightenment, grows out of the mud, of literal mud. All right, so Scorpio is the 8th house. It's a fixed sign, which means it's in the middle of a season. So fixed is firm, foundational, does not like change unless they say it's okay. It's a night energy, which means it's darker, it's receptive, it's slower, it's more passive, it's just darker, it's more night energy, the exhale. Its traditional planetary ruler was Mars, so it still has a little bit of that energy associated with it, that heavy-duty warrior, that more kind of the more sulky warrior, like, I'm going to get down and dig into this shit. Its contemporary ruler is Pluto, which, again, the Hades, the god of the underworld. So Pluto is associated with the underworld and with deep systematic change. No, segmatic bit. That was planned. All right. Deep change, systemic. I think it's systemic change. Like change on the global scale, because Pluto moves so very slowly. It's associated with change on the global scale as opposed to the personal scale. So, the animals, like I said, the scorpion, the phoenix, and the serpent, are the snake, because snakes are also associated with death and rebirth through their metamorphosis of shedding their skin. Butterflies also, but they're not associated with Scorpio. The main keyword for Scorpio is desire. Scorpio is all about the emotional depth, the deep dives, the complex, the getting to down in the muck and the mire and explore it. They not even really about finding the gems. They just get like getting down into the muck and finding. People with strong Scorpio tend to be complex people, magnetic people, pretty private. They like their privacy. They might be seen as brooding and powerful, maybe even a little intimidating, and they're very instinctual people. Scorpio has to do a lot with destruction and purification and with rebirth. Not so much... It's the rebirth. It's not really the death process in itself. That's more like judgment would be more of the actual death process. Death is more about the rebirth process, about the change, because it's so slow. It's like we die, we settle, we are reborn. So Scorpio is a bit more about the rebirth as opposed to the actual dying part. All right. So that's Scorpio. All right, in the Kabbalah, so I have my supernatural deck here, and of course, it is Death. So, Death, the character from the show, and he's standing next to a tombstone. He's a cool guy. He loves his Chicago pizza. He's actually pretty cool, and he's a no bullshit type dude as well. Death was kind of a favorite character of mine. Alright, in the Kabbalah, Death is the ruler or associated with Path 24. So we again have that 4. We've already gone over that. 2 is a little bit more about dualism. And 2 plus 4 is 6, which has to do with creation and harmony. So it's the Hebrew letter associated with it is Nun. And the path goes between Sephirot 6, Tiferet, and Sephirot 7, Netzach. So Tiferet, or Tifereth, is, again, 6. The meaning is beauty. It's associated with the sun, the heart, the center, and the heart. It's the meeting place between the divine and the material world. It's the harmonizing place. It's located in Olam Baraya, which is the realm of creation, which is also associated with air. Hey, double air, yay, fun. Alright, so that's Tiferet, and I've gone over that before in the 6 of Wands, and I'll go over it again in the 6 of Swords, and again in the next 2 suits when the 6s come up. So Tiferet Netzach is 7. It means victory. It's associated with Venus, and the feeling, the emotion, the energy flow. Netzach is associated with right brain creativity. It's like the overflow of just the wild artsy side, so it's path 24 is between the heart and the right brain, and just that creation right there, like going from your heart to your head, to the heart to the right side of your head. It's like that just beauty, it's full art type deal. It's also associated with the right side of your, where did it go? It's one half of the solar plexus, right hip. Right hip, which is one half of the solar plexus. And Netzach rules all creative undertakings and is found in Olam Yetzirah, or the realm of formation, which is associated with the element of water, at least for me. So the elemental associations are kind of personal to me. They're not actual part. Kabbalah doesn't actually have elemental associations, so they're personal to me. All right, which I'm sure I've said before, but it bears reiterating. So death card, the path between the heart and the right hip or the right brain, the artsy creative, the emotional side. It's full of motion back and forth, which, funny thing to be associated with death, but death is emotional. Like the dying process, the actual death, the holy shit, this is gone, and then the rebirth, that's all emotional. The dying and the death is emotional, and then the rebirth is creative and emotional. We have to take those emotions of the death and bring them and create something of them to be reborn. So it's death is very emotional. All right. The Kabbalistic angel associated with death is angel number 72, the last of the Kabbalistic angels, actually, because there are only 72 Kabbalistic angels. The other 6 that this dude associated with the tarot were extra angels. They're not part of the traditional Kabbalistic angels, I guess. So 72, appropriate for death. This is Mumia, whose name means God, the end of the universe. Appropriate. It's literally the end. And we've got an angel sitting up here on a giant hourglass, looking down, watching the sands tick through. Alright, so Mumia is an angel, so lowest of the hierarchical rankings. Not in charge of any other angels, just of herself, or themselves. Their psalm is Psalm 116:7, and they protect in mysterious operations and bring success in all things, governs chemistry, physics, and medicine, and influences health and longevity. A lot of stuff there, a lot more than most of the other angels. So mysterious operations, things that are secret, they protect in that. Success in all things, that's kind of cool. So again, with a little bit of luck there. Governs chemistry, physics, and medicine, and influences health and longevity. Those born under Mumia will distinguish themselves in medicine and unveil the secrets of nature. Lovely. Mumia is the sole guardian of those born from 11:40 p.m. to 12 a.m., physical guardian of those born from March 10th to 14th, and the moral guardian of those born January 1st, March 14th. So if you're born on March 14th, they're both your physical and your moral guardian. That's kind of cool. May 30th, August 10th, and October 21st. Alright, so they're my moral guardian. I don't even know what that means. I'll sit with it eventually. Alright, so that's Mumia. Alright, so the being associated with death from the Fantasy World / Spirit Halloween tarot deck. What else but the Grim Reaper himself? Death is death. That's all there is to it. Now, however, this depiction of death of the Grim Reaper is the Grim Reaper standing on a boat in a river. So it makes me think of Charon. So I put this being as Grim Reaper / Charon, and I figured I'd do both. Charon. I think it's Charon. I'm pretty sure it's Charon. So the Grim Reaper seems to have appeared in Europe during the 14th century Black Death plague, obviously. And the different parts, as far as they can assume, I suppose. Oh, and this Grim Reaper has a bunch of chains behind him, as well as holding because I didn't really go into detail on this. So standing on a boat with candles and a lantern ahead, holding a hourglass, chains hanging above and behind him, smoke everywhere. or sands of time. It actually looks more like sand than smoke. And of course, water plowing through the waves. All right, so the Grim Reaper seems to have appeared in Europe during the 14th century Black Death Plague. The different parts of the Grim Reaper: skeleton, kind of representing death, obviously death of humans. The robe. So apparently, I put a little extra in here because it made. Okay, so the robe, and the one website I found said it was reminiscent of religious figures' funerary garb, and I was like, well, that or a burial shroud, because a lot of the original pictures don't depict the skeleton wearing a robe, but kind of a cloth or wrapped around, like just kind of thrown over one shoulder or kind of around their hips and pelvis, more like just a single sheet of cloth as opposed to a full robe. The robe came a little bit later, so it's like it's either a burial shroud or it's the funerary garb of religious figures. And the scythe, of course, for the harvest, because eventually all things get reaped. Alright, so the specter is sometimes, in different myths, sometimes the Grim Reaper is either the cause of death, or it's sometimes only a psychopomp, someone who just, like, leads the dead into their next life, as opposed to actually being the cause of death. The earliest appearance of Grim Reaper as a title is from an 1847 book, The Circle of Human Life. So, and that's the Grim Reaper. Charon is the ferryman of the dead across the river. Come on, I totally just forgot the name. Wow, the river Styx in Greek myth. So Charon basically helps people, dead people, get across the river into Hades, into the actual judgment hall faster. So basically, in Greek traditions of death, it was you'd put a coin under the deceased's tongue, I believe, and they would be able to pay a coin to the ferryman to help usher them across the river into the land of the dead faster. Those who couldn't afford to even put a coin, they would have to wait on the riverbank for 100 years before they could get ferried across. And Charon was apparently a bit of a stickler about it. He wasn't going to let you slide through. Alright, so that is the Death card in the Fantasy World Tarot. Alright, last bit of this is the traditional meanings of the Death card. So, upright. And for this, I have my Hush Tarot. And so we have here a bird of prey, I'm assuming more a hawk, all black feathered with a bit of armor on it, holding a twig, standing on a skull inside a nest, inside its nest, of which there is both a hatchling, just freshly hatched chick, and a few other eggs unhatched. So a symbol of death in a place of life. And then, of course, the hawk itself is a predator, but here it is being a mother or a parent to its chicks. So a lot of opposite symbolism. Death and life all contained in one. It's actually quite cool. Alright, so upright, traditional meaning is change will happen. There's no stopping it. It comes slow, and it may come slow, but it comes sure and steady, and there's no denying or stopping it. That death's horse will ride, and you can't stop it. It will just trample those in its wake. And hell, even in this, those claws are like piercing the skull, like it's, or at least cracking it. It's like there's no stopping it. There's no stopping the fact that death will happen or that life will be reborn. It's just continuing on. There's nothing you can do one way or another. Inverted often traditionally means stagnation or obstinately refusing to see that change is happening, whether it's coming or it has happened, or like this is the person that's like talking about their glory days in college from 10 years ago because they haven't moved on past that, or even worse, their glory days in high school because they have not fucking moved on. They refuse to see that they have grown older, that things have changed. They are an adult now, and those days are behind them because, well, the thing with that is in our culture, there's so much around high school and college. It's like these are the primes of your life. This is when you actually live, and then after that, you just get a job and you work until you die. Or if you're lucky, you retire. And so it's like those are the people that are like, that's all they know. They can't see that there's more to life than just working until you're dead type deal. They can't see that, yeah, high school and all those fun days might be over, but there's still stuff. This is the stagnation, the obstinately refusing to see. Just like, it's like if this comes up reverse, it's like, okay, you need to get your shit together. Something needs to change. You either need to realize that change has happened, or you need to actually just get up off your ass and change something, because this is bullshit. Alright, and that is the death card. Perfect for the Halloween month, I suppose. For all you spooky peoples out there. And spoopy peoples. Spoopy's fun too. Alright, so... Oops. Ouch. Next week will be a 5th Sunday, and I believe actually Halloween. Oh yeah, next week is Halloween. God fucking damn. Alright, so, and that will have a 5th week special, which I'm not telling you what it is. You'll just have to wait and see. Unless you, for some brilliant reason, are on my Patreon, in which case it'll be on there earlier. It's, yeah, hopefully, if I'm doing this right. Yeah, it's possibly already up. If I got it recorded in time. Alright. So, but other than that, look forward to that, because it'll hopefully be interesting. Hopefully. I hope so. I think it'll be interesting. I think it's interesting. Anyway, so that's that. So other than that, next week, that'll be that for this month. So yeah, that's it for this week. So... thanks for watching. Have a great rest of your whatever. Like, comment, subscribe. Click my links below if you feel like it. Yeah, that's it. I'm out, y'all. So, have fun. Bye.